and Dr. Yashpal, who is the coordinator of the International Veterinary Association webinar series. Today, it's my pleasure to introduce the speaker. Today's speaker, Dr. Srinivas Kaveri. Dr. Srinivas Kaveri received his veterinary medicine degree in India and his PhD at the Pasteur Institute, Paris. Dr. Kaveri carried out his postdoctoral research training in the University of California, San Diego, USA. He joined CNRS, National Center for Scientific Research, in 1990, where he has been leading an internal research team affiliated to Sorbonne University, Paris. His research interests include immunopathology and immunotherapy with a special focus on autoimmune and inflammatory disease. From February 2015, Dr. Kaveri represents the French CNRS as a director of New Delhi Bureau at French Embassy. And Dr. Srini sir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Or before I start, maybe those people whose microphones are on can switch off so that the background music and the children, making pleasant noises, they can all be turned off for some time. And at the end of the talk, of course, when you have questions, we can turn on the microphones, your microphones on. So thank you very much. And thank you very much, Vijay. Thanks to am I muted? Can you hear me?
No, yeah, we can.
Okay, because I saw a message saying I'm muted, so hopefully not. Yeah.
No, you are not.
So good evening to all of you, those who are in India, and good morning for those people who are in the other part of the world, or good afternoon, or well, good night if you start falling asleep immediately. So today we are going to discuss a little bit about what is the impact of the environment on animal and human health. And I thought it would be a different perspective, but then the more I'm learning about you all, I understand that you may not be learning a lot more different. So I call it a slightly different perspective. Okay. So why am I not able to move the slide? Okay. Let's start. It seems there are children that are born with a virus called Zika virus in Brazil, where the brain is actually dysfunctional, meaning it is very small in size. And these kids will have lifelong disability. It seems there's a lot of pollution in Delhi, and that has a major impact on the health of many individuals there, all of them. Okay, there's a problem of shifting in the slides. I don't understand why. Okay. And also there is Arctics. It's warming up very faster than any other region. And it seems half of the world may face very severe water scarcity soon. It seems there is coronavirus, maybe in China or maybe all over, right? And then I heard that in the United States, each year, more than 35,000 people are dying as a result of antibiotic resistance. Well, so what? Is it our problem? Is it my problem? I'm having a little good life in Paris and a little family and everything seems to be fine. But no, it is our problem. And there are many more such societal problems or societal challenges. In fact, they have been identified very clearly, the health issues, the demographic changes, those changes related to climate, the clean and efficient energy, there's a big scarcity. We need to think of smart and integrated transport, food security, bio-based economy. There are many such societal challenges. And why am I mentioning them all? We are, most of us sitting here or joining us today are veterinarians, and we have other responsibilities. And we believe, at least I believe, that we all have our role very clearly cut off there, because you are eligible to address these societal challenges. You are capable of addressing, and more importantly, you are responsible to look at these societal challenges, how you can change it, how you will be able to bring in a better society. And we're not going to change. I mean, we are veterinarians or we are health scientists, let's say, or involved in medical research. We are not going to change everything. We are experts in one domain. We are not going to do anything about smart and integrated transport or other areas. Let's stick to one issue that we know about, and those is health issues. So before I start, I would like to thank my colleagues in Paris, and this is right in the heart of Paris. And this part of Paris is called Jardin de Luxembourg. And what you see over there is the Senate building. And if you walk on the right side, it is Panthéon. And behind the Senate building, you go down to Odeon, and on the right side is my laboratory. And sometimes these people, we can also find them in the labs, actually. And when they're in the lab, they're quite efficient. And I ask many questions that have clinical relevance. So I'm grateful to my clinical collaborators in Paris, in France. And then I have other, quite a few collaborators all over the world. And some of them I have mentioned here. For example, because we are in India, we're talking to Indians. My colleagues in Indians of Science, Veer Negi, in Pondicherry, and KEM in Mumbai, and other people. So, as you're sitting here, even if it's locked down, and even if you think that you are in a very protected zone, protected area, you are confronted with challenges, microbial challenges. And these microbes come in the form of bacteria, virus, fungus, etc. And as you have learned right in your high school, the innate immune system, or the first line of defense, for example, you learned the hair, the cilia, the tears, the mucus, and all that guards you as a first line defense. There's more to it, actually. There are quite a few specialized cells of the innate immune system and molecules of the innate immune system. They all ensure that the pathogen does not cross the body barrier and get inside you. But depending on the virulence, depending on the load of the pathogens, sometimes these pathogens get in there and they bypass the first line of defense. And then that sets off what we call as the adaptive immune compartment. In the adaptive immune compartment, it has various cells and molecules. And one of those first cells that recognize these pathogens are called antigen presenting cells, or sentinels, or they are also dendritic cells. And many cells are in the body. These are like patrol police who go around the body and see if there is any danger coming in the body. And if they sense any danger, they capture them and they show them in the closest lymph node to the T lymphocytes. And the T lymphocytes then polarize, meaning they differentiate and they get into action, and they secrete some substances called cytokines. And these are very important molecules. And these cytokines, as you can see on the left side, they provide signals to the B lymphocytes. And the B lymphocytes are known to make antibodies. When they wake up, they make antibodies, and these antibodies are specific. Now, imagine the pathogen that I was talking to you about here on the top have already reached their target organ, let's say the lungs. So the antibodies recognize these pathogens, and the moment the antigen or the pathogen, we also call it antigen, and if they are recognized by the antibodies, it sets in a whole cascade of events. The macrophages and neutrophils. The macrophage. Okay. Can you mute others if you don't mind, please? And so the neutrophils and macrophages are recruited to the site, and they start secreting substances that are harmful for the pathogen. And the idea is to remove the pathogen. And meanwhile, it recruits one more important component of the immune system that's called complement system. And the objective of this is also to ensure that the pathogen, the microbes, are killed and eliminated from the body. Meanwhile, if this is not sufficient, the endothelial cells, they get into picture. They start secreting some useful substances, and that allow the T lymphocytes to get into the act of producing more obnoxious molecules, and they all ensure that the pathogen is killed. And T cells have, in fact, different subtypes. We'll discuss that probably a little later. And there's one very important type of T cell called cytotoxic T lymphocyte. And this, the function of this is to actually kill the virus infected cell, whereas this is very, very specific for virus infected cells and cancer cells that are transformed or malignant. And this happens all the time, and this works to perfection. And thus, even if you're sitting here, it may be functioning and you will be eliminating your pathogen. There's one more thing that happens, and that is both the T and B cell compartment, they give rise to one more subset of cells called the memory T cells. And these are very important because this is very crucial for vaccination. Meaning, if you're reinfected with the same pathogen, you don't need a long time to set in all this entire panoply of reactions. These memory T cells and memory B cells, they kick in and immediately trigger the whole immune response, and you are able to eliminate the pathogen very efficiently. So this works to, as I told you, perfection. Everything is very well maintained, very well controlled. But if your immune system does not behave, what happens? Meaning your immune system is not functioning to an optimal level, or it is exaggerated, or let's say it's misdirected, and that's not good. You know, all these components of the immune system are perfectly important and necessary, but imagine for a minute, a baby is born with a defect in any one of these components, and there are at least 120 odd genetic diseases where the immune system may be defective. And this is a genetic disease actually. And these are called the primary immunodeficient kids. This is a genetic disorder. And these kids cannot confront the environment. They cannot confront the pathogen. And because they have a defect in the immune system, it can be fatal. And I just pay my respects to Professor Alan Fisher here, because he was the first one to have tried the gene therapy to correct these combined immunodeficiencies. We'll probably discuss that some other time. Now imagine if the immune system is exaggerated. You all know about allergies, and common allergens are all these that have shown on the right side, on the left side. And well, yes, this is an exaggerated immune response to certain components that our immune system does not like. And that's not good either. But then even more dangerous is when the immune system is misdirected. Imagine for a minute that there is no infection, but your immune system gets activated. It gets activated and directed against your own pancreas. Think about it for a minute. Your T cells, your B cells, your antibodies, your complement, your whole system gets activated for reasons that we're not going to discuss today. And the end result is the same highly potent, aggressive, violent reaction that is very useful to remove the pathogens from your body. It's very efficient to remove the bacteria infections and all of this. Now, instead of removing the bacteria, it is aggressing your own pancreas and starts attacking that. And if your pancreas are destroyed, then you end up with diabetes. And if your joints are destroyed, and you will end up with arthritis, or if your central nervous system or brain is affected, you may end up with multiple sclerosis and conditions like that. That's not very nice. So this, to me, is a little background on how your immune response works. When it works perfectly, everything is fine. But when it is deviated or depressed or misdirected, it's not good. Now, before I continue, I have a small disclaimer. I have been listening to many webinars and many talks and many conferences these days. And when I listen to those young people who are coming up with the most state-of-the-art technology, I think I'm sitting in a movie like Fast and Furious or this other Doom, where everything is going so fast and they're coming up with new technology, new molecules and therapeutics, etc. And I'm biting my nails, and the nails are almost bleeding. I'm falling off my seat by excitement. But you don't have to worry. My story is very laid back, okay? You can sit back and relax and don't go to bed, as I said earlier. My story starts long back. It starts, let's say, about 78 years ago, when we observed that many infectious diseases could be controlled, as you can see on the left panel. Rheumatic fevers, measles, mumps, tuberculosis to some extent, hepatitis, many other infectious diseases could be controlled, and they went down. But as they went down, there are other complications that started off. These multiple sclerosis or autoimmune diseases or allergic conditions, they started coming up. So what happened? What did we do to that? Now, take a look at this. If you see, I mean, if I turn off the lights, let's say, for example, if I take a picture in the night, and this is exactly what I see globally. Those rich countries like the United States, Europe, and to some extent India and China and Japan, all those are illuminated in the night, meaning these are rich countries that are developed countries that have the ability or that have the money to turn their electricity on, which are also an indirect indication of developed country. But now if I overlap that with the geoepidemiology, all those diseases that I mentioned, the new diseases like allergic conditions, the autoimmune diseases, and all those lifestyle diseases, cardiovascular diseases, they are all coinciding with those developed countries. Something has happened with those developed countries. So if you look at what has happened over last, let's say, this study started in the 50s, late 50s, and more than 600,000 cancer patients were studied, among 92,000 among offsprings. And one key factor that we observed was, although genetics is an important factor, genetics, of course, plays an important role. We'll come back to that later. As you see on the right side, the pink horizontal bars, the environmental factors were most crucial in triggering in most of these cancerous conditions. So which means we had done something to the environment. Something wrong has happened in the environment. And when we talk of environment, what comes to your mind? It comes to a beautiful garden maybe, or maybe Rajesh Khanna going behind Sharmila Tagore singing Gungun Rahe Hain Bhanware. Maybe that comes to your mind, or maybe Shah Rukh Khan or whatever. But there's something we have done to this nice little world. So what comes to our mind? There's something else that has happened. See, this is the way we were living. Close to the nature, close to the animals, and our lifestyles were different. And what has happened over the last 50, 60, 70 years is that first, a heavy deforestation in most countries. And as you can see, this is maybe the outer ring road in Bangalore or one of those ring roads in Delhi, one of the most important streets. And the kids, instead of playing out in the ground like Gilli Danda, they are playing with their smartphones or with laptops. There is a major shift in the lifestyle. And that is one of the major reasons for the lifestyle diseases. But then when we think of environment, there's much more to it than just the pollution or all those factors that I mentioned. There's something much more. And that, to me, when I consider environment, it is everything that's outside. For example, the noise pollutions, the toxins in the air, the climate changes, the urban design, or interaction of the people, or trauma, accidents, all these factors. This is external environment. But imagine for a minute, as you are listening to me, your brain is working, your eyes are working, your ears are working, and then you have had your nice lunch or coffee earlier. So your digestive system is working, the entire system is working. So in addition to this external environment, thousands of molecules are released in your body right now, and they are talking to each other. And all this, composition of the entire range of molecules, for me, that constitutes the internal environment. So when I talk of environment, to me, all this comes to my mind. It's not only all those factors that we listed as the external environment, but it's also the internal environment. So all this is important. How all these are regulated is important. And if you mess up with this, there's going to be a problem. But there's something else we have done, something more than that. See, that happened long, long back, almost 300 years ago, when Edward Jenner first laid the foundation of vaccination. The idea was fantastic, and he, thanks to his work, the whole world is now free of smallpox, right? And then Louis Pasteur, he, one more, a genius, made vaccination against rabies, anthrax, and veterinarians, all of you know about it. I mean, Louis Pasteur did much, much more than that. He was a real genius. And then something else happened, a revolution, penicillin. and other antibiotics, we are talking about late 20s and early 30s. A revolution has happened. The world is completely changed once for all since the advent of antibiotics. And well, those people were contributing to that. We also wanted to change the world to some extent. When I say we little, group of friends. We joined veterinary college back in the early 80s. And here is a small slide to show my respect and affection and best wishes to my veterinary colleagues. On one of those occasions when we went out on the state tour in 1977, here is Professor H.N. Narsimurthy, who was the dean, retired as the dean of Veterinary College, Hebbal, Bangalore. K.G. Ravi Kumar, unfortunately, tragically, he left us when he was doing PhD in Canada. This is Dr. J.P. Ravindra, who I think finished his career as a senior scientist in National Institute of Animal Nutrition and Physiology. And it's me here and my bell bottom. See, the bell bottom is very important those days, right? We were in style and we thought the girls were looking at the boys who were having the largest bell bottoms. But in fact, they were looking more at my bell bottom than at me, but that's okay. Then come the 80s. As we moved on in the 80s, on one cold October morning, I landed in Paris. Nobody noticed it, of course. And I joined Institut Pasteur, and I was lucky to work there. Something nice happened that I met this person. And I don't think you're looking at the right person. Actually, I met Michel Kazachkin. And with Michel, we started exploring various aspects of the immune system, and particularly immunopathology, immunointervention, and overall behavior of the immune system, and what they call it today as a system biology approach. We had a rudimentary approach to study the immune system. Then as we move on, come the 2000s. And what we observed was that in addition to the genes are extremely important, and the physiological functions of the immune system is very, very important, and other functions. But the key factor was the environment. If there's nothing that you can do about genes or your physiological functions, but there is a lot you can do with the environment. And we might have played a lot with our environment, because you see, what you see here is a clear difference in the profile before the advent of the antibiotics and post antibiotics. See, in the developed countries, those rich countries, soon after the advent or the discovery of the antibiotics, they controlled most of the major endemics, but then they were not smart, because they abused the antibiotics, and even the developed countries ended up with having opportunistic pathogens, variants, and antibiotic resistance, plus a lot of other lifestyle diseases. But in developing countries, in poorer countries, they didn't have access to all these antibiotics. So the major endemics continued to prevail. But those who had access, they abused, and they ended up with opportunistic pathogens. Ultimately, a mess. We made a mess because of antibiotics and other things, obviously. I'll come back to that in a while. So a recent survey has clearly shown that by 2050, millions of people will be dying because we'll not be able to treat them with the antibiotics. There will be antibiotic resistance in a very serious manner. Over 4 million in Africa, and all over the world, actually, huge number of patients will be dying just because we'll not have any antibiotics to treat those opportunistic or antibiotic resistant microbes, pathogens. Why did this happen? In fact, it's not their fault. They all had a very well-intended efforts. They meant good, because when they vaccinated, they removed and eliminated the pathogens once for all. These some of the diseases, and the antibiotics were good. They were meant well, but then our friend had already told the time may come when penicillin may be bought by anyone in the shop, and he buys some penicillin and gives himself, but not enough to kill the streptococci, but enough to educate and cause a resistance to penicillin. And that's precisely what has happened now, which means that there is a serious disruption in the microbial ecosystem in the immune system. So Now, what has happened? What is dysbiosis? This disruption, meaning an alteration in composition of the microbial community, and that leads to pathology. Let me repeat here. A dysbiosis is a condition where your normal flora is altered. The normal composition is altered, is defective, and that is because of one of the reasons is antibiotics. And that is going to be a major, major problem. To me, when I talk of environment, I also mean this part, exactly this part, in addition to the environment that we conventionally believe, like pollution, the stress, the diseases, I mean, the infections and all others. Plus this, we have caused a serious disruption in our microbial ecosystem. It's, you know, when you look at yourself, I mean, you see a beautiful face of yourself and you're happy, and this is the healthy face. But then you are not alone. In you, you are full of these pathogens. There is billions of bacteria in you, and there is a perfect symbiosis. And it is very important that we maintain this whole range of microbes that are there. These form your whole physiology. Your entire thing is controlled by your microbial ecosystem. And so this has been the subject of studies for the last couple of decades now, and more recently, enormous emphasis has been paid to this particular branch of science, where you have microbes, I mean, microbial flora, not only in the gut, because most of the times when we think of microbial flora, we think of the gut flora, but then your urogenital tract, your skin, your you know, the mouth, the pharynx, the respiratory system, stomach, everywhere. You are only one individual, but actually you are controlled by billions of these microbes, and that microbial ecosystem is extremely important. And any shift or change or defect in this caused because of our lifestyle or because of drugs is going to cause serious problems. And we have now very clear demonstration. This is a relatively old data. And even those days in 2015 itself, we knew that obesity, diabetes, allergy, autoimmunity, cardiovascular diseases, atherosclerosis, all these, Alzheimer's, everything is one way or the other related to your microbial ecosystem, your dysbiosis. Otherwise, you have disturbed that. Okay, and therefore microbiota is something most important. Today's, in fact, the one message that I would like you to go back home with is microbiota, the importance of microbiota. And that's what I meant by environment, in addition to other conventional environment that you know. It's not only in human health, but in animal health also. You know, there are beautiful studies that have demonstrated the impact of disturbing your microbiome, gut microbiome, on the immune system, on the cardiovascular system, on your brain and behavior, the liver function, and enteric nervous system, and the host metabolism. Entire physiology can be altered by disturbing your gut flora. There's more to it, actually. When we consume preventive, particularly preventive antibiotics that we use very often in animals, or curative, okay? When that happens, you develop resistant bacteria, and these develop, this resistant bacteria, they are spread into the nature, and your fields are contaminated with that. Your agriculture plots are contaminated with that. The meat is contaminated, and we eat those foods, either the meat or milk or even food grains, which are already having those contaminated resistant bacteria, and we spread them among themselves. And when human beings, they take indiscriminately, injudiciously, they transfer these resistant the bacteria to others. And now we are in such a disaster. And this, to me, is more important than just the pollution and other. This is a serious condition, and I call it a health disaster. And same here in other veterinary domains. For example, there are so many factors that are very clearly demonstrated that have clearly shown the impact of microbiome, gut microbiome, and that can be controlled. I mean, many factors like age, breed, the region, and the feed, the housing, hygiene, all this is important to maintain a good gut microbiome. And you can disturb that, you can disrupt that by stress factors, external stress factors that we now come back to the, we spoke about that in humans. Now temperature and other environmental factors, light or water, excess of salts, or diet, or litter, or anti-nutrients, those drugs that we use, trypsin inhibitors, and those other molecules that we use, the toxins, the viruses, the parasites, the bacteria, the pathogenic, I'm talking about the pathogenic bacteria, they can disturb that. And that in turn will lead to microbial resistance. And actually, in a simple words, when your gut microbiota is in a healthy environment, it maintains the regular function of the stem cell populations, which in turn gives rise to the immune cells, the bone cells, the osteoclasts and osteoblasts, and the muscle cells, and everything is maintained in a perfect homeostasis. And this has an impact on long-term physiology. But if there is a defect in your gut microbiota because of excessive abusing antibiotics, your whole stem cell population is disturbed, and that in turn will cause disturbance or perturbance in your immune component, in your entire physiological functions, and the long-term physiology is disrupted. This, to me, is an extremely serious condition. Now, we have reached this stage. There is no doubt. We have already reached this stage. Okay. Now we have to somehow correct it. How we have to somehow normalize this disturbed homeostasis. How are we going to do that? One most simplest solution is the judicious use of antibiotics. So every time we prescribe an antibiotics, let's be careful. And every time we prescribe to the animals, and then those big animal farms, either poultry farms or dairy farms, you must keep in mind the impact of indiscriminate use of antibiotics, how it is going to impact the whole society. And probably we can come up with probiotics, and there are many now, and more probiotics and probiotic containing foods are coming up. Or why don't we go to a simple back good old days, like when I was a child, I mean, when we, having worms was something normal, I guess. We lived with those. And I think once in a year or once in 6 months, we used to take some drugs for removing that. But otherwise, we lived with these helminths. And now studies have clearly shown that because of excessive use of these drugs that remove all these helminths, there is no more helminth. And that has shifted the immune profile. Now, ironically, we are now using the worms as a therapeutic. Isn't it strange? And of course, this is quite debated. It is controversial, but there are some clinical studies, that are going on to see the impact of the helminth therapy, meaning you have an ampule with full of worms, and then that's what your drug is. See how, to me, this is really going backwards, right? So we now want those worms to treat ourselves. Or you must have heard, I'm sure the veterinarians are very well aware of the fecal transplantation. And this microbial transplantation, microbiota, healthy microbiota from a healthy individual can be transplanted. And there's, once again, this is also, there's a lot of discussion going on, and how safe it is, how healthy it is, and how practical it is. But people are thinking, I mean, this may be a certain possibility soon. Or, as I would say, go back to the good old days and let the kids play gilli danda, because enough of this so-called modernization, sitting in front of your computer, sitting in front of your laptops, not even seeing the nature. How many of you are having, your kids playing those latta katta, or whatever we call it in Kannada, in English it was called topper, and bugri in Kannada, for example. How many of that, or those goalies? Now we don't do that anymore. So maybe time to go back. Or a simple life, okay, simple innocent life with animals again. But then in India, we have other ways of doing this also. And we, in our part, I mean, in India, the traditional medicine is very well established. And instead of eating the junk food, keep an eye on your food, what kind of food we are eating, and then avoid all those, particularly the junk food. And today is International Yoga Day, I'm told, right? Yeah. And so think of that as one other way of maintaining your homeostasis. So globally, there are various methods. I mean, everything is not lost. So first is, this is an overall summary of what we could do to maintain or ensure that your microbiota is in a healthy state. You first could think of using antibiotics in a very judicious manner, and a very specific antibiotics. Or, as I said, the supplements that have probiotics, that have probiotic enzymes, or prebiotics. And this is one way of maintaining, ensuring. But then others, which are a little bit more drastic, are the skin transplantation or the fecal material transplant that I said. And in veterinary field, this rumen fluid transfer is well known. I mean, I was told, even when I was in the vet school, my teachers, they were talking about this, and then this is rather well established. Or now, when there are, this may come sooner, where we can target a pathogen using very specific drugs, and not indiscriminately using a large spectrum antibiotic, which completely wipes off your gut microbiome or microbiome elsewhere also. And one thing I did not mention earlier was the hygiene hypothesis. Actually, when we use excessive of soaps or detergents, or all those chemicals around us, in either, for your own cleaning. I mean, we're talking about hand washing now these days. That also, we should be careful, of course, judiciously. And all these excess of hygiene, for example, it seems some countries, they take 2 times a shower and 3 times a shower. And okay, keeping clean, and then you don't have to be smelly, and you don't have to smell bad when you're with friends. But that doesn't mean you have to overdo that. Excess of hygiene is not necessarily a solution either. So almost 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago, close to 30 years ago, Jean-François Bach, a leading immunologist, and many other immunologists proposed this hygiene hypothesis, where excess of hygiene has shifted the immune profile. And this hygiene hypothesis, just looking, I mean, in simpler terms, could be the use of your soap or detergents, etc. But to me, it goes back to all those deeds that we did, meaning excess of use of vaccination, excess of antibiotics, excess of drugs, excess of everything. All this has caused a disturbance. So we have to keep ourselves, abreast of all this. And now I'll come back to the major societal challenges that I said. We are in a position, most of you sitting here are clinicians, veterinarians, and you have a perfect understanding of what's going on. So you are eligible to bring in a change, and you're capable of doing that. And more importantly, as I said earlier, you're responsible. So you have a role in bringing back some of these good practices. So the last slide, I would like to end with this, where to me, this picture here shows a perfect physiologically alert gut microbiome, or that reflects into good physiological functions, all your functions. I mean, all including immune system. I often refer to this as immune system because I'm fond of immunology and immune. And because of an alteration in your gut microbiome or in microbiome, it could be a hole in the microbiome because of excessive use of drugs, or meaning antibiotics or the molecules. Soon, your entire architecture of your physiological functions gets disturbed. The whole dynamics is altered, and the architecture, the entire thing is altered. And here, by using, if you are again using antibiotics to suppress these infections or suppress those unwanted reactions, that's not a solution. What we want is to bring back the normal homeostasis using judiciously the drugs and maintain the proper homeostasis and bring it back to normalcy. And that is in your hands. And here I would like to stop, and I would like to thank once again my colleagues in Paris, and let me name some of them. Shiva, a veterinarian from Bidar Veterinary College, Pushpa, Sebastian, Justa, Mahendra, Ankit, Vani, who is in IIT Madras, and Sebastian has been long-standing colleague now, and Jordan is also there with us, and this myself, Marie-Françoise, Johan, Jagdish Bairi, one of my very, very faithful colleagues for a long, long time now, and he will be coming back to India, and he will be joining IIT Palakkad as a head of the department and of life sciences, I think, and Mohan, another veterinarian from Bangalore Veterinary College, maybe some of you know, and now he is in a leading position in Pfizer, and Sandrine and Caroline. I think, and then this is one representative picture of one particular time, but then this is long back, and many people have come since then and gone elsewhere. Thank you very much for your attention. I stop here, and I'm ready to take questions.
Thank you, Dr. Srini sir. Thank you very much. It was such an intriguing and very good talk. Now I request Dr. Srini, Dr. Chirantan Kadian, President IVA. Dr. Chirantan, are you there? Hello. Okay. Dr. Chirantan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Sir, please, some comments from you, then we can take questions.
Comments. First of all, I thank Dr. Sri Kaveri, an Indian. We are proud to say that he has reached such heights, and we thank him for hosting this webinar for us, sharing his knowledge with the veterinarians of the country. I thank also Dr. Vijay Pal for his coordinating with Dr. Kaveri, and definitely we would like our audience questions and answer session with the honorable speaker. Dr.
Okay.
Vijay Pal, please.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So, Dr. Srini, sir, we have a very good comment that your presentation is very intriguing and very, very nice. So people liked, and there are more than 92 comments that is very nice and very informative. The two questions that is coming to us is that, yes, what is the alternate to antibiotics?
Yeah,
yeah, okay.
No, of course. As of now, we do not have serious alternative. If there is a need for more than thinking of alternative, because antibiotics are important. They are useful. I'm not saying that we should not use them, but then use them judiciously, use them as specifically as possible, and particularly make sure that the course is respected properly. But however, as I showed in one of my slides, in the future, soon, there will be specific molecules that would be, I mean, there are so many studies that are going on to come up with new molecules that are not necessarily the antibiotics, and which could be the substitute for antibiotics. That will happen soon. But then I like this question because with Jagdish in Trends in Pharmacology, we published a paper a few years ago, I think 4 or 5 years ago, where we clearly show that antibodies, normal immunoglobulins, and specific or non-specific polyreactive immunoglobulins could be one fantastic alternative for antibiotics. Meaning, you see, right now, we'll not go into the details of coronavirus, but still, because it's the actual burning issue, until and unless we find specific antivirals, the studies are going on. The results to be there, and there are many antivirals that are going on, and I have made another presentation on that, and soon vaccination will be there. But until then, you see, the veterinarians knew this knowledge long back. You can come up with hyperimmune antibodies meaning those people who are already suffered from corona and recovered, this convalescent plasma would have antibodies which are hyperimmune and they are specific. And that would be true for many other infectious diseases. So thanks for the question. There is an alternative. One alternative existing is immunoglobulins, hyperimmune antibodies, and soon we will have other molecules which could substitute as antibiotics. Yes.
Another burning question, and that is also my question also, Dr. Srini, that whenever you go to international conferences and whenever you go for, say, AMR and all kind of a policy making meetings there, mostly it becomes a punching bag. People start to accuse that antimicrobial resistance because of the large usage from the poultry sector or from animal sector or from veterinary sector. Sometimes they come 70% of antibiotic are used in veterinary. Some people say 90% and all. Is there any study either in India or somewhere else in the world which says that how much percentage of antibiotic is really being used in veterinary sector? Or are we means to blame for this or what?
That is a very interesting question. You clean bowled me there. That's a very beautiful question. Look, I don't want to expose my ignorance, and being away from the veterinary field for a long time, although this is a very relevant question, I don't want to expose my ignorance. I don't want to say something which is not correct. So true, I have also heard as a veterinarian, it hurts me when they say veterinarians are irresponsible and we are using antibiotics in a very irrational manner, etc. But is there a specific data or how much it's used and how much can be used, how much should be controlled? I guess I don't have an answer for that. But now that you have brought to my attention, I will certainly make it a point to discuss with all those, including the policymakers, and what is the threshold, how much can we use and what should be done. I will get more educated on that. I'm sorry, I don't have a specific answer for that. I admit.
Sir, one more question. Whether the changing in food consumption, suppose if you are consuming this fast food and then you start consuming the normal food, will there be change in the microbiota and gut health?
Yes. Yes. The food, well, this is a very good old saying. You eat your food like a medicine. Otherwise, you will have to eat medicine as your food. That has been very well said long back. Even our ancestors knew that. No, change in the food patterns, and it should be varied, of course. And no, to me, there is no doubt at all that food plays a very important role in your microbiota. No doubt about it.
Okay. Sir, two last questions. Whether probiotics have any effect on gut permeability?
I do not know. I do not know, but there should be some studies made on that. I have not looked into that.
And
but
last,
I don't know why is this question asked, but ultimately, gut microbiota, whether the probiotics, whether they would have no, I do not know the answer.
Okay. Sir, last question is whether bacteriophage therapy is alternative or either this bacteriophage or nanoparticle can be used as an alternative to antibiotics?
Yes. It is probably not tomorrow, but soon we will have such molecules derived out of phage display, or many other technologies are coming with which we are coming up with, or people are coming up with substitutes for antibiotics, and that will become a reality one day, or at least it will supplement the antibiotics appropriately. Yes.
Yeah, there is very good questions from Dr. Rameshwar Singh, who is saying that what is the status of use of antibiotic in animal feed? Status of antibiotic in animal feed.
Yeah, I have been away from the veterinary field for a long time, so I am not fully, informed about it right now. No.
Yeah, can I answer in your behalf,
Please
sir?
go ahead. You go ahead. You are better placed for this.
Dr. Rameshwar Singh, sir, this now animal feed is not being controlled by any regulatory body, but recently this is being taken over and the talk is going on, meetings are going on, then animal feed will also come into the purview of FSSAI. And there is evidence that antibiotics are used in animal feed which is not being permitted by CDSCO, Central Drug Standard Control Organization, by law, and which is the authority which control the animal, which control the drugs usage into veterinary as well as animal antibiotic as well as drug. So with this, Dr. Chirantan Kadian, we come to the end of the question answer session. Dr. Chirantan, so I would like to thank from my core of my heart to Dr. Srini to give such a valuable time, and you give your time in your weekend. I'm a great admirer of you, that whenever you are there, you stimulate us so much, veterinarian, and we'll feel proud of you being you are a vet in such a position. I request Dr. Kadian sir to say the vote of thanks. Dr. Kadian sir.
My vote of thanks starts with the Honorable Dr. Kaveri, to whom we are obliged from the deepest core of our heart. Indian Veterinary Association feels obliged with the role the young veterinarian Dr. Vijay Pal, Dr. Yashpal Malik, the coordinator, the Dr. Sontakke, Umesh, Balaji. They are the men behind this show, which is enlightening our people. I also welcome Dr. Rameshwar Singh, a very eminent scientist who is Vice Chancellor of Bihar Animal Science University, Patna, and we are glad to find him in between us. We have Dr. Babita Tripathi, upcoming lady president from Madhya Pradesh, also joining in, and all other participants who joined us. One question was there in this webinar, whether we are going to host on Zoom or not. Definitely this was the last commitment, as we had already booked the slot and booked for the guest also. So be rest assured, we also are true Indians and we won't be hosting any future webinars on Zoom. We are going through a phase of the elections to the VCI 2020, and my request to all the participants in the show is, please be ambassadors of this revival of our veterinary profession. Indian Veterinary Association commits total responsiveness and total commitment to hear the problems of our fraternity, and only way out where we can dictate terms is through Veterinary Council of India. Indian Veterinary Association can only plead, but Veterinary Council of India is a statutory body that enjoys a status with the authorities, with the government, and for last 36 years we have been failing on this account because it was a purview out of the way for the veterinarians. Indian Veterinary Association has made it a common platform. We have shared with everybody what IV is, what VCI is, and what the intervention VCI can make for the betterment of our fraternity. The major problem today is with the unemployed youth, the vets who are waiting for the various placements, and even their parents waiting for to see their wards, becoming professionals, joining the mainstream. And it is a very true fact that we are short of veterinarians in government sector, but the commitment lies on the part of the government to employ them. We at IVA made a passionate plea with a request to the Government of India, and we thank the Secretary, the Ministers, the Joint Secretary, that they issued an advisory on 14th of August 2019 to fill up all posts of veterinary cadre. I again request all state associations, all unemployed veterinary graduates to put pressure on their state associations, and we also commit to put in pressure again as our public interest litigation to implement section 30B of Indian Veterinary Council to be implemented, but the situation is deteriorating day by day. I would like to share 2 states now with you where the authorities are trying to put in strong hold on section 30B. One is Uttarakhand, where LVOs, the paraprofessionals, have been asked not to participate in the vaccination process. It is playing with the health of the animals, the vaccination cover. We strongly condemn the action of the Uttarakhand government. Today, another incident happened in Telangana, where the paraprofessionals indulge in the same activity, and the director and the commissioner government has asked for comments. We request Telangana Association, IVA Telangana, Dr. M.K. Shrikant, our candidate, also to intervene. Same situation is developing in Gujarat, where the paraprofessionals, they are again demanding the rights, and the government is under pressure. So my appeal to all the participants is, be the ambassadors of IVA. Spread this message, because COVID time we won't be able to go out to the various states, but you are the most elite who are joining IVA time and again for the webinar sessions. So my request is that, like WVA, my own organization pleads veterinarians of the world unite. I make a plea to the veterinarians of India that veterinarians of India unite. And IVA started taking steps last year also. 2018, we conducted a national seminar on restructuring and strengthening of veterinary service delivery in India. As we have got a very good structure of veterinary colleges in India, and we also need to use their specialist services for the animals, and that's why we require our own people. The concept of veterinary paraprofessionals itself was a poor thinking on the part of the people who considered this aspect. We never wanted chota doctor and chota doctor. The system of entrusting them the responsibility of dispensaries is making the cattle population at the hands of quacks. We need various competencies like AI workers, vaccinators at low costing to the government, and wider use of the human resource component. The government does not need to leave the animals' health to quacks. Veterinary education also needs supplementing the efforts. We need more of clinicians. Rather, the education system should also be changed. We don't have any veterinary practice regulations even after 36 years of Veterinary Council of India. What should be the criteria of a hospital? And if this thing gets through the section 30B petition, definitely the veterinarians of the country will be more empowered. Although I am going out of the way and wasting time of Dr. Kaveri, but these are issues that need to be taken up in the coming context. We will continue the webinar series on some other platform. With this, I thank our coordinators, Dr. Yashpal Malik,
Thank you
Dr.
very much.
Vijay Pal, Dr. Umesh, Balaji, Sontakke, and now I would like to ask or request Dr. YPS Malik to say a few words to honor our guest speaker and thank our very elite veterinarians who joined this show today. And next week, we will be with some another guest on a very interesting topic. Dr. Malik, please.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dr. Kadian. And indeed, we are very happy to have Dr. Srini. And exactly saying that I just entered my UG class and postgraduate class with Dr. Mamchand Goel, who was my teacher at CCS HAU Hisar, then Dr. Surendra Kadian. All lectures were going exactly what he was teaching that time, that how important immunology is. And now in the fate of that we are going with the COVID, we all are realizing this, that we have to work on our natural immunity. The so many ways are there, including yoga, what you narrated, and other hygienic practices, all including our microbiota that we have to look after. So everything conclusively can lead to our good immunity and ultimately fighting this ongoing infection. This is not only the infection that we are discussing, many more are on the pipeline. Many more will come in down the road. There are so many infections because of so many causes, and ultimately we are destroying the environment. We all are involved in that. So this topic was really interesting, and the question answers that came from our all the participants, that shows that how much keen they are in listening. Exactly, the leading to antimicrobial resistance, that is the growing concern. And still, not only at India level, the worldwide, we don't have exact senses on the uses of antibiotics or antimicrobials rather in total veterinary sciences, including the fisheries also. Now one more thing has been added with livestock is the fisheries. And lately one INFAR, one more collaboration was done with FAO, WHO to make that fisheries also part of that. And we are one of the nodal agencies in that. ILRI is also working on that. So people are now are more serious about fighting this antimicrobials problem. So it is very rightly pointed out, and everyone is serious that what alternatives we have to go. Bacteriophage, peptides which are coming, bacteriocin, so many, and even cytokine therapy, probiotics, prebiotics, all are being evolved now. So people have started thinking, national programs are coming on antimicrobials and how we can avoid uses of that, controlled uses. And such platform what has been given by Dr. Kaveri also, and there were so many questions, and that forces our policy makers also that we have to think about the future of veterinary sciences and future of the livestock health. Are we really the culprit? What Dr. Vijay Pal is asking, every time we are used as a punching bag. So exactly we are not, but we don't have any consensus to tell. We don't have any data. So thank you very much, Dr. Srini, for giving a very learned talk, I should say, and all the participants, including Dr. Rameshwar Singh, who is, we know that he is a busy man being at the position of Vice Chancellor, but still he spared the time and he was completely with us during that complete 45 minutes of the lecture. So thank you very much to each and everyone. We will be with you, sir, anytime. Again, we will request you to come for the veterinary profession, educate us, all of us, So thank you very much, each and everyone. Stay healthy, stay safe. Thank you very much.